Welcome to the New Planner Podcast, where it's all about helping you successfully enter the financial planning profession and accelerate your financial planning career. This podcast will help you understand the profession, become familiar with the various career paths available to you, and avoid the mistakes that limit your success. Join your host, Caleb Brown, to explore the human side of creating a successful planning career through interviews, personal experience, and insights from the trenches. Let's get started.
Welcome to the 263rd episode of the New Planner Podcast. This is Caleb Brown, your host. My guest today is Travis Hibbard, who is a financial advisor at Fiduciary Financial Advisors. Travis joins the show today to share his transition from engineer to financial advisor after 18 years in a large manufacturing company. He talks about how advice from his mother, who is a financial planner, put him on a path to becoming financially independent and how that eased his transition. Check out the middle part 2, where he shares how he worked through the many decisions that come with launching a firm, including what channel and operating structure, the pros and cons of his structure, how he got his clients, and some of his mistakes along the way. Stay tuned to the end for insight on what to consider when making a career change. I hope you enjoy this episode with Travis Hibbard. Hey, Travis, welcome to the New Planner Podcast.
Hey, Caleb, how you doing?
I'm doing really good. You know, I'm very excited to talk to you, and our listeners, I think, are going to really enjoy this episode because you're our first, I think, retired or partly retired guest that we've had on here, and we're going to get to what that means. But sure. We were talking off the air, and we're sort of chuckling about that. But I want to start at the beginning and then get to sort of the retirement piece and sort of the second career for you. But maybe just talk to us about how you got started, because this was a pretty big career pivot for you. So maybe just start at the top.
Yeah. So I went to school for engineering. So it's super technical background, kind of progressed through a manufacturing operations career. So doing some engineering work, grew up eventually into leadership roles, and ended up being in like a large operations leadership position. Alongside that career, you know, I was a technical background person, but my mom actually worked in personal finance. So she worked at one of the big wirehouses out there. You know, you turn 23, 24 with the big paycheck after working, you know, as a lifeguard in college or whatever. And she says, give me half your income and you can do whatever you want with the rest. And, you know, early on in my career, it's my mom. She's trying to look out for me. I did exactly what she said. I didn't know that would eventually lead to more freedom later in my life. So I was touched from a financial planning perspective very early on, thanks to her guidance. And yeah, so hilarious how that plays out. So she ended up retiring. The person that took over for her business, I didn't really trust. And so I was probably 7-8 years out from where I currently am, got really interested in personal finance, what you can get back with flexibility in your time, and kind of got in the weeds on every personal finance topic I could get my hands on. And so I spent the last, call it 8 years, trying to figure out how to create financial independence for my family. And as many people moving into the financial planning profession will find out, finance is one element of your life. And a big part of it is trying to find out what are the parts of your day that you really enjoy and you can find passion in. And so it's if you say work is optional, it's great. I could wake up every day and watch Netflix for 8 hours, but you're not going to have a super fulfilling life, right? And so I spent the last, call it like 3 or 4 years pursuing, you know, call it mental health activities, financial health activities, and physical health activities. And how did I create a situation where if I leave my corporate role, you know, what keeps my brain turning on a day-to-day basis, what keeps me excited about helping other people, because that was a big passion in my corporate role. And that's how my wife actually was like, well, you love personal finance and you really like helping other people. Why don't you do a planning thing on the side? And so that kind of was the spark that got me researching what options were out there. And, you know, big kudos to you. The New Planner Podcast was a part of like trying to learn, you know, what's out there, what options exist. So I had your podcast and a few others, and I also had my mom's experience at a big wirehouse to give me kind of her flavor of, you know, some of the training programs and some of the, you know, I want to say cold calling, but some of those strategies that don't necessarily fit in with what I was looking for from a relationship-based kind of planning approach. So yeah,
wow, lot to unpack there. Thanks for the mention. Like that's really cool, full circle, because you just reached out to me and said, hey, Caleb, I'm just interested in coming on the show. I listened to this. It helped me and want to check in. And here we are. And I just want to go back to something you said earlier. Did you say you've been saving half of your income ever since you were 23 years old?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
So, yeah. Yeah. I
Congratulations.
was just, but you don't know. And so, like, you think about like young kids and people that are coming out of school, it's like if you save half your income and live off the rest, the problem solves
You're gonna be
itself.
in good shape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the problem solved itself. My mom was like, yeah, it was in hindsight, she always jokes to me about that being the best decision I ever made. And it definitely was. Other than picking my wife, of course.
Yeah. Okay. So you were in a leadership manufacturing company for what was like 20 years or something, or what
18 years.
18?
Yeah,
Okay,
18.
18 years. And then your wife suggested starting on this. Now, did you start something on the side or did you do a cold turkey break? I'm going to break off
Yeah.
from corporate and go start my own thing.
Yeah, good question. So I'm a walk before I run kind of person. And so while I was working in corporate, I started doing a ton of research on, should I do full blown my own business and go XYPN? Should I work at a wirehouse and go through like a training program? Or should I, look at other options that are out there? And so I was able to start up basically at nights. So study for the Series 65 just to make sure that, it was something I enjoyed. And then yeah, worked for about 14 months in the role, finding clients, onboarding clients, doing planning, doing investment management stuff prior to giving my notice at my corporate role. So about just shy of a year and a half, I was doing both, one at night and corporate during the day, just to make sure it was something that I was really going to enjoy, the time with. And so, yeah, after that year, I gave the announcement, part-time planner, part-time super dad, just honestly living the dream that I had hoped it would be.
Now, did your spouse work outside the home as well? Was there another source of income or was this it?
She was also working out of the home, but she's also planning on leaving her corporate role here in the next year. So she's now in the same process I was. So, you're going to leave a 45-hour-a-week gig. You know what you're passionate about. You know what you love about your day-to-day life. How do you reincorporate that on a 20 to 30 hour basis a week instead of a 40 to 50 hour week? So we're exploring that with her right now to try and find a passion project or passion career that she can pursue.
And then that helps a little. You had a little bit of a runway, right?
Yeah.
You still had your corporate stuff coming in. You had a little bit of stuff from her. You were building. It sounds like it was for a year and a half or so. You were building up. Were you able to get some traction and get some clients to sign up during that period?
Yeah. So I've always been perceived as the finance nerd at work. And so you get a lot of people that are like, oh, there's a finance question about the 401k plan or HSA investing or whatever. Go talk to Travis. And so, you organically end up with this group of people that ask you questions. And so, once I announced kind of candidly to a couple of folks that I was doing it, I think by the time I left my corporate role, I had 18 clients.
Wow. Okay.
And yeah. So, and I was planning on not a ton of income from this. It's like a balance of, spending 20 hours a week, helping people and not necessarily I got to drive growth and find income in whatever way possible. So in the 12 months that I started on the side, I had already exceeded what I ever expected to get in income from doing this profession. So it more than achieved my income, I guess, expectations early on, which was mind blowing to me, actually.
Because this is truly a work as optional situation. It sounds like you didn't need to do this financially because all those good decisions and the sacrifices you made for all those years.
Yeah, it's all about purpose for me. Yeah, it's all about purpose.
Wow. Okay. So okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So it's how do I craft a week where 20 hours, 15 to 20 hours is financial planning, helping people achieve their own personal financial goals. Part-time super dad, they're in school now, and then call it physical and mental health stuff. I'm a big athlete, love endurance racing, endurance running, things like that. So trying to find a balance of all of it.
Let's go back to the channel selection, if you would. So there's kind of you kind of got XYPN, and some other places where you just start your own firm, and then you've got wirehouse, you've got insurance, there's lots of different channels, but you chose to join an existing firm and then be an advisor under. Just walk us through.
Yeah.
We have some people that aren't familiar with that setup.
Yeah. So yeah, you think of like the two main options, and what I had considered early on was you join a big wirehouse, you become an employee, you're salaried for a while. It's a bunch of cold calling, but really good training program, right? So like really good foundation, really good onboarding and training. And then you have the XYPN route, which is you're solo, there's a lot of infrastructure and compliance and things on your shoulders. And I'm a very, very good self-starter with things, but from a risk perspective and making sure you don't make mistakes with clients' money, that felt a little too risky for me. Throughout all my research, I ended up finding kind of this middle ground where you can work for a firm, but still be self-employed, kind of as a self-employed 1099 employee through that firm. And so you get paid out on a grid, and the grid is much better than you'd find at a wirehouse. But there's other advisors that are there to help support and mentor you. And then by being an employee or a subcontractor to that company, they handle most of the operations and compliance stuff. And so I'm not opening new accounts. I'm not doing the ongoing compliance requirements. They obviously send me updates and trading authorization things that I need to approve and certify, but they handle most of the administrative stuff so that I can focus on, call it investment management, financial planning, all that stuff that I really am passionate about. And so because I was so focused on the parts of the job that I really enjoyed, I could always pursue an XYPN route later if I want complete ownership and customization. But the fee schedules on a lot of these companies are very modest and reasonable. And so I'm able to outsource the parts of the job that I don't either feel comfortable with or want to spend my time on. And then I can spend most of my time, in meetings with people or doing investment management stuff with people that I'm really excited about.
I know you said it's based on a grid, but just, what is the approximate split? It's like for our newer listeners, maybe like, what are you having to give up to have kind of a home office handle all this for you?
Yeah, so I'm not allowed to talk about our specific grid, but I did a lot of research, and it's from like anywhere from 25 to 40%.
Okay. All right. Yeah. That sounds about right. Kind of a rule of thumb industry
Yeah,
wide.
so 25 to 40. And there's I found 4 or 5 different firms that had kind of this option or this structure out there. I ended up going with one that was a super good cultural fit. They, allowed me to meet a few of the advisors before joining the team, joined a couple calls that they were on before the team. So they're so extremely supportive that it made it a very easy decision on who to go with. But nice to have the option later. So one thing that was also really important to me, Caleb, is I don't want to be told how to handle my clients. Like I don't want to be putting them in certain products or being forced to have them buy annuities or have the clients not be my own. And so many of these firms, they don't care how you manage your clients. They have expectations on fee schedules and things like that. So you aren't not meeting the fiduciary code, but these clients are mine forever. So if the firm for some reason changes their values and I no longer agree with how they support treating clients, I'm free to at any point leave and go find another firm or go through XYPN. So there's really very little downside if you're starting out because you get kind of a mentor-mentee relationship. There's mastermind groups and a lot of operations support. So you get a really good foundation without needing to take all of it on for yourself.
And then just at the end of the year, instead of getting a W-2, it's a 1099 they issue you, and that's what you're. Okay, all right, yeah. That's pretty simple setup, right?
Yep.
And sometimes people just don't know that that's out there. Just kind of bolting onto an existing firm, but it sounds like you can. Can you use the software that you want and have as many meetings as you want and the planning and charge what you want, or is that are there guidelines?
Yes, yeah. So they have call it like a base architecture of software they provide, but they've been so open to pursuing new things. So like you could pick Schwab as a custodian, Fidelity as a custodian, Altruistic as a custodian. We do have a standard planning software with Right Capital, which is one of the big options that's out there. But that's one thing that's really fun about being with this company. There's a lot of, I would say, entrepreneurial spirit because we're all coming from different backgrounds. And so the firm's very open to considering different technologies or approaches. And we basically just all kind of talk about it as a group and see if there's shared interest, which makes it really fun.
How was that? Let's just go back. Because some people, they're not able to work on it for a year or two. They have to have kind of a clean break. So maybe just, how was that sort of managing 2 jobs and a family and a working spouse all at once?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was an easy time in my life or in our relationship. My wife and I both have postgraduate degrees where we went back for 4 years of secondary education at night. So we did like evening school. I do think, I did mine before we had our kids. And so I think it's just a very difficult thing to be able to make sure that you're on the same page before you commit to something like this. So my wife and I are both, I don't want to say type A, but very goal-oriented people. And so we spent a lot of time talking about what this could mean and why it's important to try it before going into it. If you needed to, hit a certain income replacement, I think there's definitely a level of commitment that you're doing late nights. For me, my number one job is dad and husband. And so most of my side gig stuff was after the kids went to bed, and so I'm up, 8 to 11 working on certain handouts and stuff that I'm trying to develop for new clients and watching every Right Capital, tutorial you can to try and make sure I understand how to set up an S Corp and Right Capital. There's just so much to a new job, but if you're excited about it, I think the time comes easy. You want to turn on your computer, you want to dig into the details and try and learn some of the new tech and some of the new parts of the job. But at the end of the day, if you can't sustain a family and a relationship through that, it's not worth it anyway. So I think, every relationship's different, but if you can understand where it's going to get you from a freedom and flexibility perspective, it's an easy discussion in the long run if you are on the same page with your partner about what that means. Because, now that I'm not in corporate, the work-life flexibility that I have in this career and this profession is unparalleled to my 7 to 4 corporate role that many times needed me in the evenings, whether I liked it or not. So it just comes down to having a good plan and thought through, who your potential clients could be, who you think would be somebody that would want to work with you. And then ultimately, there's going to be a leap of faith at some point. But I think for me, being able to step into it in the evenings really made, my comfort level high enough to know it's like, no, I enjoy this and I see potential for growth, beyond where I'm currently at, if that's what I decide to do later.
And I guess and I've debated this before with Kitsis and Alan Moore and some other people too, but I guess the downside is like, if you don't make the clean break, it's just, and especially you have a spousal income coming in, it's like, you never really, your back's not against the wall. Are you ever going to jump off? You're going to jump off the diving board.
Yeah. And for me, that's where I feel like if you're not passionate about it, don't do it.
Yeah.
Any self-employed profession like this, where you're responsible for managing your own time, driving your own business, being excited about the work. If you're not excited about it and you're doing it for income, don't choose this profession. You need to be excited about helping other people and helping other people in a finance space. And if you are, I think the ceiling is unlimited. But if you're chasing it for the dollars or for something that's not, more intrinsically motivated, it's a difficult thing. You need to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons for sure.
Or at least the quick dollars, right?
Yeah,
Right. It's like I was explaining to Georgia Tech students yesterday, like the funny thing about financial planning is you work really, really hard at the beginning of your career and you don't make very much. And at the end of your career, you don't really work hard at all and you make all this money. It's like, it's just, and they're like, you could just see their mouths like, what? Like, whoa, that's really cool. All right. In all seriousness, the clients, is it only engineers? Is that all you go for?
No,
or is it everybody?
no. So I'm a generalist. I don't have a niche. I don't really, not to say I don't believe in it, but one thing I do love about this financial planning approach with this firm is they don't care how I charge. And so what that means is I can charge AUM and only get $2,000 a year from a low income, low net worth client because I think financial planning should be available to everyone. And I can have a high limit fee where I don't want to charge over $8,000 per household because I feel like anything more than that is unfair and not required based on the work content. And so for me, I want to make financial planning accessible to everyone. And so if that means somebody wants a couple hour discussion to help with setting up a Roth IRA, or I want to do one-time financial plans, or I want to do ongoing management, I'm open to helping anyone, which is one thing I really love about this profession as well. It's not about minimums to me. It's not about, finding high net worth people on LinkedIn. It's about finding people that need help and figuring out the right way to help them in an efficient way so that they get a good value for the services that they're looking for. And so that it's fun for me because I get a ton of variety. It's not very efficient because everyone's situation is different.
That's right.
That's kind of the engineer in me. I like digging into the details of people's backgrounds, and it makes the profession, I think, more engaging because of the different, types of experiences and situations you can end up in.
And I know you said like, look, I don't really need this. I don't need anything about have you set goals for yourself, like number of new clients or, any type of metrics or something?
Yeah, I have a I would say like a number of clients goal per year. It's not revenue based. I actually want to have it based on segment. So if you said like an AUM segment, a one-time plan segment, and an hourly segment, I'd like to have, I'm shooting for 10% growth in each of those segments because I want to make sure I'm helping people in each segment of that instead of, being revenue focused or something. It's more about call it service goals than like top line revenue goals.
I have something similar, and when I'm looking at bringing on clients, like for every person it's for sustainability for me, right? So every person that's withdrawing their portfolio, I got to bring on someone that's accumulating, to
Sure.
try to cancel them out. So
Sure.
that's just sort of the internal game that I play with myself. And, a lot of times it works, but sometimes it's hard to stick to that. If someone comes along and it's like, you got to have goals, metrics or something, because again, it goes back to sort of, we're going to just drift around and do whatever. I mean, it sounds like it's going really well, Travis. And somebody signed. Well, you said you work with everybody, so and that you'd have different fee schedules. So I'm not going to go there. But what other words of wisdom would you give to people that are looking at making the plunge and leaving this quote unquote cushy, sort of high paying corporate job where it's comfortable, they know what it is, and jumping into this?
Yeah, if you're passionate about personal finance and you're passionate about helping other people, I think the biggest challenge and thing that I think will just be a lifelong part of this position is the ongoing learning. That's one thing I love about this is there's a never ending level of knowledge, whether it's estate planning, insurance, investments. It seems like I've got a list of things that I need to go track down that's a mile long because I'm passionate about it. If you're passionate about the topic and you're passionate about helping people, I think it's a slam dunk because of the flexibility you can get in this profession. And really there's no limit to what you can achieve as long as you're excited about the content and you're excited about helping people. And so if those two things are really like rooted in why you're pursuing this, I think it's honestly one of the best professions you can pursue because you can help so many different types of people and make such a lasting impact on other people's lives.
And I'll be a little bit more direct and blunt. Like it's a lot more rewarding than working at corporate America, where
Oh
you
my
don't
gosh.
like see
Yeah.
the fruits of your labor, and someone's stock goes up quarter of a point and they get a bunch more options. Like great, that's great if you want to do that, but I'm in a little different seat than most people. So because I see people from corporate America calling me all the time, wanting me to get them out of there. So I don't like.
Yeah, being able to control your own destiny and make the decisions you need to, and seeing those rewards in a week or in 2 weeks, or the email you get back from a client that says, I really understand the difference between Roth and pre-tax and a 401k now. Thank you so much for explaining it. It's like, that's like the least sexy thing to talk about to a lot of people. But for me, it's exciting to get some of these topics that people feel overwhelmed with and have them walk away being like, oh, I actually understand it now, and let's go do it. That makes sense. So yeah, it's just fun to make that big of a difference for people.
I know you had kind of just my word, not like kind of a mothership you bolted on to, but any mistakes or anything like, I kind of had a real big challenge here or hurdle here, or here's something I learned along the way. I mean, because you're still pretty early on in this.
Yeah. 2 years in, very new. Mistakes that I made. I think early on, one mistake that I made is I just jumped to the custodian that everyone recommended. And so I didn't really have a ton of hands-on experience at that point, but like, oh, go with this custodian. I'm not going to say it just because I don't want to cause problems. But after spending a little more time and having, I would say, more of a connection to how I want my job to work from a day-to-day perspective, getting more time in the custodians beforehand would have allowed me to have a better feel for the interface, the services that each of them provides. And it would have been an easier start because then, I had, call it 3 or 4 clients that I'd opened in one custodian. Then I had to move them over to this other one once I'd figured it out. It was kind of I would say, not the best client experience. And that was an early learning for me that I think I played out through the rest of my technology kind of selections or choices, because I'm like, okay, I want to get into this. I want to get into this, understand a little bit more before I get people set up, because then I'm not going to be moving people around or having to make a new plan or things like that. So I love altruists. They're a huge help in my business and a real simple element to my business. And I can't be happier that I ended with them. And they're not a super, common name compared to the big names out there. So that's probably a mistake that I made. Yeah, I think there's a lot of great test planning softwares out there. So like studying for the 65, I used a software called Achievable. They're a super great platform for helping study for the 65. Really intuitive interface that made it easy, and it's all PC based, not book based. So if you're going straight into the 65 with not a finance background, that software was a wonderful tool to help me pass the test first try, and it went great.
This is amazing, Travis. Congrats on sort of your success just this early on. And you really do have a passion to help these people. And we love getting people from other professions and other careers into financial planning. So this is awesome. We get to highlight this. Before we close out, and any other final comments that you want to make?
No, I'd say like whether you're pursuing financial planning or you're listening to this trying to decide if it's the right thing for you, find something you're passionate about. Whether it's planning or something else, find something you're passionate about. Life's too short. Go make it happen.
Thanks so much for coming on the show, Travis.
Appreciate it, Caleb.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the New Planner Podcast. If you're ready to discover the top career paths for financial planners and see which track is best for you, we created a free guide to help you. Grab your copy of the Financial Planner Career Roadmap at newplannerrecruiting.com/roadmap. There, you'll also find more tools and resources all created to help you build a successful financial planning career. Tune back in next week for another episode, and until then, we're here to help you succeed.